this week, sorry, on the latest episode of Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. My guest tonight is Jane Battenberg, Ph.D., and she and I would like for you to join with us in aligning with the energies of co-creation so that this show gives you the best information to your highest good and best outcome. So welcome, Jane. Are you with me?
I am, Chessie. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. And for those of you who may not know Jane, she is a Ph.D., like I said, and as an acclaimed author, international speaker, and visionary in the field of personal development and growth. She's a powerful and dynamic speaker and has spent years in the study of spirituality and health. Her work has taken her to many countries, fostering a deeper appreciation and understanding, I can't talk tonight, of our multicultural world. Steeped in the wisdom of ancient mystery, she has woven all of this together into the fabric of her work, which is centered around changing one's external world by changing within. She's a co-author of I Yoga, How You See is How You Think, and that's EYE for those of you who don't know, soon to be in its 5th printing. And she and I are going to talk about the change within is the key to changing our external reality. And my longtime listeners and students and clients know that this is a hot button for me, Jane.
Yeah. That's great.
What got you started on this particular path?
That's a good question, Chessie, because as I was thinking about today, I was going over my life, and I had started with such an eclectic array of things like Reiki and Huna and neurolinguistic programming and NLP, and it was just all over the map. And I was trying to find some commonality or some umbrella to put that under. And I came up with the phrase change within, and the logo that I use is just a simple water droplet that you see going into the pool and reflected, because it symbolizes as above, so below, and as within, so without. And I thought, all of these things that I do are all centered around being able to change your reality in some way, not to just accept what they say should be or doctors tell you or whatever. And to be able to shift reality in some way. And I'm just reminded, I just saw the Stephen Hawking movie, The Theory of Everything, I think is the name of it. And, he was given 2 years to live, and here he is, 72 years old, and still going strong. So,
well, in martial arts, they say if you move the head, the body has to follow, and that always comes to mind when we're talking about this particular topic, because it's one that I hold dear and I talk about ad nauseum. Anybody will tell you, and it's always come to my mind that as you change your mind, your body and your spirit must follow.
That's perfect. That's exactly. So when I was into all these esoteric, eclectic things, and I thought, well, which is right? And I realized it doesn't matter what you use as long as you have the belief that you can somehow shift reality. And it reminds me of, when you were kids in grade school and you had a piece of paper and you put iron filings on the piece of paper and then you put a magnet underneath it. And the iron filings tended to conform to the shape of the magnet.
Right.
And I thought, so that's our beliefs, our patterns, our limiting beliefs, our everyday thoughts that we have, that we go down the same rabbit path over and over. We're a groove in our brain, and those get projected out.
Ever changes.
Yeah, there you go. So they get projected out on the external world like a movie projector. And so the way to change the external world is to change one's inside. Trying to think of an example. Oh, here's a really fun example. Okay, so I used to go to the to a restaurant with this guy and frequently, and he would always check the bill, and because he thought it would be wrong, and sure enough, it was usually wrong. And I thought, oh dear, I'm missing the boat. So I got a calculator and I took it with me, and it was usually right. But if it wasn't right, it was frequently in my favor. So the only difference between him and me was he expected the bill to be wrong, and I expected it to be right. So isn't that bizarre?
Well, our perceptions and notions about things really do color the way things occur around us. I had a client one time come to me, and she was very upset. She was just so angry that she had all of this nasty housework to do. She had to scrub the toilet. She had to mop the floor. She had to dust. She had to do the laundry. Everything we all have to do, that string and beads with no end, not in the end of your thread thing. And I told her, I said, well, why don't you change the way you look at that? And she said, how do you change the way you look at it? It's nasty grunt work. And I said, well, stop and think what you're really doing. I said, you are cleaning your sacred space for the betterment of your family. So you can take your mundane job and turn it into a divine act of love and see if your housework isn't less of a chore. She called me back the next day. She said, oh, my gosh, it works.
That's great.
Yeah, it does.
That reminds me of another story. I was having lunch. You think I eat out all the time, but with a friend, and it was a nice, warm, sunny spring day, and we were out on the patio, and these two ladies were just yelling. They were so upset at something that had happened at their work. And it was disrupting everyone at the peaceful environment. And I looked at my friend and I said, I'll fix that. And I closed my eyes and I went inside and I found everywhere where I was angry. And I just let it go. I just went peaceful. It took like a minute. Uh-huh. And then I opened my eyes and the two ladies were, I kind of blinked. They were talking very peacefully and happily. But my friend was looking at me with these wide, stricken eyes going, you're a witch. How did you do that?
Well, how did you respond to that?
I just winked at him. Told him not to cross me, no. I don't know.
But it's true. Any vibration, everything's frequency and vibration. And if you can change to a higher latitude, you're always going to calm things down and make things better, yeah?
That's true. Sometimes it's limiting beliefs that we've created way back, like before we can even remember. I had a client, I'm telling you stories, but I had a client that had a backache, and he'd had it his whole life, and the doctors couldn't find anything that was wrong with him. And he, he wanted to get rid of it. So I talked to him for a while, and I said, well, talk to me about resentment. When was the first time you ever had felt resentment? He said, oh, that's easy. Oh, really? And he said, yep, when I was a little boy and my mother got sick and she stopped playing with me. And I thought, oh. So I said, well, what did you decide? He said, that little boy decided I'd have to stiffen up and do it all myself. And I said, stiffen up? Oh, you go back in time to that little boy and you talk to him and get him to make a different decision. And don't come back till he does. And so he's like in his mind, And then after a while he said, okay, he made a different decision. And so I said, okay, bring that new decision all the way back through your lifeline, all the way back to the present. And just like laying down an alternate reality or a parallel reality. And he said, okay. So he came back, and I said, well, how does your back feel? And he says, feels great, doesn't hurt. So the next day I called him, and I said, so how do you feel? How's your back? He said, I can't believe it. I woke up and I had no backache. I can count on one hand the number of days I've woken up without a backache. So the next day I called him and I said, I'm not going to call you every day, but how's your back? He said, no backache, and it never came. The ache never came back.
Wow.
No pun intended.
Cool. Yeah, with my clients, I'll ask them, I say, when I say pain in the back or pain in the neck or pain wherever it is, what's the first thing you think of? And this one client that I'm thinking about said, my job's a pain in the neck. And
there you go.
As soon as she left her job and went to a different one, guess where she doesn't have neck pain anymore.
That's good.
It's that changing your perspective, changing your thought process, changing deep within yourself that you were talking about, yeah?
Right. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, Dr. Serge King is a kahuna, well-known author from Hawaii, and he said that you can actually create new memories by visualizing something different, visualizing a different outcome.
Uh-huh.
And one day I was chopping wood for my dad, and we broke the axe handle, and I was pounding a new handle on the axe, and I slipped, and the hammer hit the back of my hand, and it swelled up and hurt and was black and blue. And I said to my dad, "Excuse me a minute," and I ran it through. I started from before it happened, and I almost hit my hand, but I didn't hit my hand. And I ran it all the way through to the end, and then I opened my eyes and I went back, and I must have done that 60 times, running it through, like laying down a new reality. And, memory changes over time.
Right.
And so what you remember isn't the truth. So I was just laying down a new visualization, a new way of looking at things to give my body choice.
You know what that reminds me of? How we
Wait. So,
I'm sorry.
So when
I
finished,
excuse me. Go ahead.
about 60 times it took, and there was no pain, no black and blue, no swelling.
That's
gone.
Awesome.
Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted. But
No, that's fine. Like I said, I thought you'd finished. What that reminded me of is the way we change a habit. It's one day at a time. I think it takes like 21 days or something to break an old habit and start a new one, to recreate a neural pathway in a different direction. And that sounds like very much what you were doing, yeah?
Exactly.
I like that. Sounds a lot easier than years and years of psychotherapy to me.
Right.
Have you written about this?
Oh, yes. Okay, so my sister and I wrote a book called Eye Yoga, EYE Yoga, and it's exercises for the eyes on the surface, and it quickly pulls the reader deep into the whole eye-brain connection. And some of the technique that I talked about earlier about the guy going back in time to resentments and curing his backache, I talk about that process in the book. But the book is exercises for the eyes, because the eyes are hardwired into the brain. So when a tiny baby fetus is forming, the little buds on the side of the head come forward and go external. So your eyes, through the optic nerve, go right back into your brain. So if you think in lots of detail and like detail, then you'll see up close better than far away. So you might be nearsighted. And if you like the big picture, then you'll be farsighted. And so your sight affects your brain, and your brain affects your sight. So the two are connected.
Makes sense to me.
So all what you were talking about earlier is getting the metaphor, for the the pain in the neck and this and that. You can use that with sight also to actually get your sight better, to see what. We started writing this book because I had an experience where I was studying to be a vision therapist, and I actually got my eyes to see farther away. And what that did was it changed my whole perspective on my life. So I changed my vision, and that changed my life. It enabled me to see a bigger picture of where I was headed and what I was going to be doing. And my sister, on the other hand, changed her life, and her vision changed. So she was in a high-stress job. She cut the job out, went to much lower stress, and she couldn't use her glasses anymore because her vision got better and better.
Huh.
So we looked at that, and I said, wow, I changed my vision and my life changed, and you changed your life and your vision changed?
I see patterns.
There you go. So
that's wonderful. How did you manage to change your vision? I had read somewhere where Deepak Chopra was talking about the fact that he'd been flying around on airplanes for so long, he'd started reading the posted notes that are on the bulkhead of the airplane, and he said he'd be sitting in the back and reading them, and he realized he didn't need to wear his glasses anymore. And he was talking about one of these exercises to help you see that. How did you manage that?
Well, I was in a doctor's office doing vision therapy and to work with kids, and so I had to learn how to do it first myself. But there's a lot of ways you can just naturally get your vision better. Like if you wear glasses, if you take them off for a period of time during the day, it allows your eyesight to go back to restore itself to its natural way. So say somebody that's nearsighted and they need their glasses to see far away, well, they're going to need their glasses when they drive, but the rest of the time they can you can actually tell your brain, see, eyes, wake up and see. And after a while, you can communicate, the brain can communicate with the eyes, and the eyes can actually just get a flash of clarity, and you can begin to train your eyes to see farther away better. And if you, and if you see far away and you can't see up close, taking in more detail will help. And there's something called, I guess I'm getting too technical, but you can take your finger out in front of you and move it slowly towards the bridge of your nose, focusing in on the fingertip. And as you do this, you can feel your eyes try to cross, start to cross.
That's
and then you move it back. So then you move it in and out, and it kind of stretches your eyes because it's hard to look in close.
Well, I know when I was doing yoga with my yoga instructor, she had us do eye exercises. We'd warm our eyes by rubbing our hands together and holding the heat over our eyes, and then we'd do look all the way up at like 12 o'clock and go all the way around one direction and all the way around the other direction. I'm doing it as I'm talking like you can see me. And then warm the eye muscles again, and she said that helped tune everything in. Is it kind of the same thing, only different, or?
It's very much the same. It's very much the same. Our eyes are controlled by eye muscles, and if you stretch them just like yoga, if you stretch them and strengthen them, but more relax them and stretch them and get them to move outside their habitual way of looking, then it really helps. It really helps your sight. I just thought of something.
Do it gently, ladies and gentlemen, gently.
Yes.
These muscles are very small and very tiny. You don't want to snap them around. You're not doing cardio here.
There you go. Starting in the 1st of January, I'll be putting some things called eye yoga tips, some videos. I think it's a series of 13 showing different exercises that one can do to improve their eyesight. So if anyone's interested, go to my website, which is, if it's okay to say it?
Sure, yeah.
It's changewithin.com.
Cool.
And starting the first of the year.
If you will send me all of your contact information, I'll put it out so the folks can read it in the advert and they won't have to try to remember.
Oh, good.
We want them to be able to get hold of it. This sort of brings me to my next question. A friend of mine does sun gazing. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
He swears by it. He thinks it's wonderful. For the listeners who may not know, you watch the sunrise, and you do it only at the dawn time of day. You don't do it at noon. And you watch for only a few minutes, and then you turn away, and you're looking directly at the sun. And he says it's wonderful, and he does it every day. I think he's up to like 30 minutes. Do you have any ideas about that or feelings about that, or is it part of what you do?
As long as it's safe, some people think it's great, and other people are a little bit worried about, damage for it. So what we do in this iYoga book is we do something called sunning, which is where you have your eyes closed and you allow the sun, the rays, the healing, warm nutrients of the sun to penetrate through your eyelids. Oh. And you slowly move your head around from one side to the other so that the sun gets into every corner of your eyes. And it relaxes you and allows your pupils to constrict. And then you do this, what you were talking about, I think, was the palming, where you rub your hands together and put them over your eyes. And that blocks out all the light. And then your pupils expand or dilate. Mm-hmm. So while you're going from sunning to palming and back to sunning and then palming, what you're doing is exercising the pupils of your eyes so that they can expand and contract better. So someone who's sensitive or has trouble seeing at night, this might be a really good exercise to experiment with and see if you can.
Well, I have to tell you, it never once occurred to me that your eyes need exercise too. That's kind of one of those duh things, I suppose. But we do need to pay attention and take care of all of us, all of our parts, yeah?
That's true. And here's something else that's really interesting to me. Your eyes, where your eyes go, direct the particular thing that you're thinking in your brain. So if you're looking up, you're accessing visual in your brain. Oh. And if you're looking sideways, it's auditory or sound. And if you're looking down, you're accessing feeling. So I tell people as an experiment to think of a fairly strong feeling, like a minor irritation or something. Mm-hmm. And you can look down to get that feeling. And then turn your eyes way up, and look up. And notice what happened to the feeling. Did it change for you?
Nice. I tried that. Yeah, that's interesting.
For most people, the feeling dissipates or disappears. So
Yeah, it did quickly too. I have a friend who does guided meditations for us on the show every once in a while, and she says to get into an alpha state to look up. Don't raise your head and look up. Just raise your eyes up to the top. And she said that automatically puts you in an alpha state. Is that what you're talking about here?
That would work. Well, it actually pulls you out of a feeling. So if you've got any feelings swirling around you and you look up, it does that. Oh, Chessie, here's another thing. Here's another thing to put you in an alpha state. It's called the shamanic state. Okay, so as you're looking straight ahead, expand your sight so you're still looking ahead, but you're looking peripherally. You might even wiggle your fingers to the side and see how far to the side you can see your fingers out of the corner of your eye. And so try walking around whatever you're looking at, but also seeing everything peripherally, everything to the side.
Cool. I like to look behind things, too. Just because it's in the foreground doesn't necessarily mean it's important.
That's
One of
right.
the exercises that I give people to do is to take a movie. Now, I discovered this completely by accident. Is to take a movie that you know really, really well, put it in your VCR or your DVD player or whatever you got, and turn the sound all the way down and watch with no sound. And what will happen is that you will see things in that movie you've never seen before. And it's because sound is not gravitating your sight to the predominant speaker on the screen.
Wow.
And the way I found that out, I was my children and I were watching The Wizard of Oz one night. We'd anticipated it all day long, turned it on, and the sound was out from the studio. So we decided, what the hey, we were just going to watch it anyway. And we saw a boom mic come out. We saw somebody's hand. You could see the cord that's holding the lion's tail up. There's a sandhill crane running around in the set. And none of this stuff we had seen before. And it really opens you up to looking deeper and more awarely, if that's a word.
So you were talking about expanding your the alpha state.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually walk around being aware of everything around you, as well as what you're focusing on, even if you're reading a book or doing computer work, if you're watching the screen and seeing everything around you, it relaxes you. And relaxation improves eyesight.
Really?
And so imagine, I tried this on the freeway. I'm driving down the freeway. I'm looking straight ahead, but I'm also aware of everything around me. And I saw this truck on the side that was kind of doing something erratic. And I slowed down and went over a lane, and sure enough, that truck banged into the side of another car.
Oh, no.
And I wouldn't have seen that. They were okay, but, it kept me from potentially being in any kind of a danger or accident just from staying in this peripheral vision on the freeway, being aware of drivers next to you and of the energy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always called that energetic driving because I've traveled around the United States quite a bit on my own, me and my little truck, and I learned really quickly how to do that. And I can tell you when somebody's going to turn, which way they're going to turn, if somebody's coming up on me too fast, and it kind of opens everything up, and you are consciously aware of all of these energetic shifts, and once you do that, you do start to see them, and you can make better judgment calls at a quick moment's notice.
Yeah, we were talking about peripheral vision and focus, and it reminds me that our society is focused on focus. I mean, the whole emphasis is seeing clearly. We read up close. We do computer work. We're texting. Everything's about seeing intense focus. So if while a young person is texting and they're also aware of their surroundings peripherally, that would change everything.
Yeah, they wouldn't walk into walls and trip over dogs.
Just don't.
All sorts of interesting things. The ability to be aware of what's around us is something that has narrowed over the last several years, and I think a lot of that is due to the electronics, not to put them down or anything, because I use them too, but being consciously aware of the fact that we are doing that so that we can turn it around and open ourselves up again to knowing what's going on around us would be a real boon for a lot of people.
Right. Because the emphasis, as I said, in our society is on focus. it reminds me of, we took a family reunion to Africa in Kenya, and we had our guide. He was looking at this far hill, and he said, look, there's 300 topi and 400 eland and 600 zebras. And I'm looking, and we're all looking. we don't.
I can see the hill.
Yeah, you mean those little dots out there? He said, yes. And we said, well, how do you know there's 600 zebras and 400 eland? And he said, it's simple. You count the legs and divide by 4. I mean, we couldn't even see the animals. And so that was just a fun example of how we get so focused in on the detail that we lose the big picture.
True.
And Chessie, what you were saying about metaphor, I mean, if you're focused in on detail and losing the big picture, apply that to life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, we need a big picture of what it's all about and what we're doing to the planet and things like that.
I think another thing that we're kind of slipping in an area is our imagination. I don't hear people using their imagination a lot, and to me that's rather sad. Hello? I thought I hung up on you for a minute there, sorry.
No, I was just considering
What came to mind is my daughter was having her first child, and I was sitting in the waiting room with her mother-in-law, and we were sitting on furniture that had flowers all over it, tiny little flowers. It was like sitting in a flower garden. And over the hours, I had become a little bored, so I was sitting there staring at these flowers. And the mother-in-law said to me, she says, what are you looking at so intently? And I said, I was just imagining what it would be like to be a bug and live underneath these flowers. And she said, well, I would have never thought of that. But it's kind of an escape as well as an opening up to possibilities, at least in my opinion. And I think that the imagination does allow us to see farther. Or am I just reaching too far here?
Well, I think that's very profound. Dr. Jean Houston is a well-known author and international speaker, and she talks about imaging and imagining. She says imagining is where you just imagine things, and imaging is where you imagine in order to create a new reality. So if you want to change your external world or you want to change what's around you, if you image it using all your senses, your visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and make it as real as you can, as if you are there, it has the tendency to manifest in the world exactly like you're imaging it.
Right, and that's because your emotions get wrapped up in what you're seeing.
There you go.
Your emotions act like a magnifier. It amps everything up. Somebody posted on Facebook the other day, a little baby child was in a car seat watching a movie in the car, and she started crying, and it was because of what she was seeing on the screen. She was so involved in the imagery of the movie that she was in the movie. And her empathetic little self was just all upset with this character in the movie. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, too. When I was little, we weren't allowed to read or anything in the car. We were supposed to look out and see what was going on around us. And our focus, again, like you said before, is turned more inward now. But still, this child could use her imagination and be in this situation. And I thought that was pretty cool. Not that I wanted the child to cry, but...
No, right. Yes, that helps create different realities so that you don't get stuck in just one way of being or one thinking, oh, well, this is the way it is and it has to be and nothing else could be different. So
I think that's the biggest lie we tell ourselves right there.
Right. You're right.
Can you get just a little bit closer to your phone, please? I think I'm losing you here.
All right. So, in order to shift reality, if you can imagine things being different, and then get in, as you said, into the emotion and the visualization of it as if you're there, then you get emotionally, invested in it, and it becomes a reality. I mean, you're creating an alternate reality. Like
remember example, that the next time you get wrapped up in drama.
There you go.
That drama's not what you want in your life. Stop and rewrite your script there, and change it. And if it's somebody else's drama, well, leave it.
Well said.
Thank you.
So in addition to imagining or creating, if you can go back in time to a point in time, this is in the book iYoga, if you can go back to the first time an event or a pattern began, and you can go back to that and then you go before it, what you're actually doing is getting outside the pattern. So once you're before it, then you don't feel the emotion or the pattern. Like say you had sadness, and you go before the first sadness, then there's no sadness, and you get to feel the difference between before there was sadness and when there was sadness. And then you come forward to when the first sadness was, and you can reframe it. You can look at it in a different light and get some new learnings and new perspectives. And once you've got that, that tends to, like popping a balloon with a pin, it tends to pop the pattern. Bucky Fuller used to talk about going through life as if you had a lampshade over your head. So a pattern's like or a problem is like having a lampshade over your head. And as long as it's over your head, all you see is the inside of that lampshade. So once you take the lampshade off and you put it off to the side, then you can see problem, lampshade, and not problem, everything else. So then, it's only then when you can see new possibilities. Okay, I was stuck in the problem, and all I could see was the problem. But once I got some distance from it, some different perspective, then I can see, oh, well, yes, there is that problem, but there are all these other possibilities. So by going back in time to the very first time you ever felt that, say, sadness or whatever, and then going before it, now you're outside the lampshade. You're outside the problem. So then you can go, oh, what can I see from here that I couldn't see when I was in it? Then you get that new perspective, and it allows you to make a shift in your mind, make a shift in your belief or your limiting decisions. And then you bring that forward along your lifeline all the way up to now, installing that like a new computer program or installing it like a new way of looking at life. And by the time you get back to now, your brain has two ways of looking at it. The old way, the way you remembered it, and the new way, the way you created it, which is much more generative and full of more possibilities. And the brain can't tell the difference between what actually happened and what you created as happening. So given a choice, it would always choose the one that gave you more possibility and more choice in life.
All right, let me be devil's advocate for just a second here, because I know somebody's going to ask me this question later on down the road. What if you cannot remember the first time the event occurred?
Oh, good. I love that. Well, here's what you do. You make it up.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Because I had a client once, and there was a man, and I said, so go back to the very first event. And he said, he was quiet. And I said, what's the matter? He says, well, I'm trying to get back to the first event. I said, it doesn't matter. Make it up. It's your mind that makes it up anyway, and any kid can make it up, so just make it up. And then he got mad and he says, okay, fine. And he started making it up. And then he was into it. And it worked. So make it up. It's your mind that's making it up anyway.
I like that.
It's all made up anyway.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's all an illusion anyhow, isn't it?
And, I mean, kids. Any kid can visualize. Any kid makes up stories and playthings and drama. And so it's like being a kid again. You just make it up.
And make it up the way you want it to be.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a whole lot.
Well, make up the first event. Now, if I were to know when was the very first time, and when was the first time I felt that X, or I decided to Y, and I'll say to the people, go back to in the womb or some past life or, some ancestor, because it's there that you can't consciously remember. So you have to go back to before you can consciously remember, and you have to make it up. So then you're forced to make it up. Here's the deal. Here's the real truth. We have patterns in life, and those are running at the unconscious level. And consciously we want to change them, but they don't change. It's because our conscious mind can't change things. So we have to go into the unconscious to make it up. And the way to get to the unconscious mind, which is where it resides, the pattern resides, is to visualize, to make it up, to make up a story. And then you're into it, and then your conscious mind can say, okay, make a different decision. And your unconscious mind will say, oh, I can do that? Okay. And then you run that back through all the way up to now, and it's changing is not an intellectual thing. You can intellectually say, I'm going on a diet, but you don't. So change is the domain of the unconscious mind, and Chessie, you hit it right on the button. The only way to get there is to the unconscious mind is through visualization.
We have about 5 or 6 more minutes before I have to wrap with you, Jane. Can you dig in and tell our listeners anything that you really, really, really want them to take away with them tonight?
I have a website called Change Within, changewithin.com, www.changewithin.com, that has a rich array of things that I invite people to come and visit. There's a personality test you can take for free, and you can order the iYoga book on Amazon through my website. Let's see, if people want to contact me personally, they can email me at jane@changewithin.com, or if you need to talk to me personally, you can call at 714-296-9594. And I encourage people to go on, I think Barnes & Noble and Amazon and other places carry the book, iYoga, How You See Is How You Think, and check that out.
Well, I have to tell you, it never dawned on me that your eyes would have that much of an effect on your brain wiring, but it makes perfect sense when you explain it. Like I said before, it's one of those duh moments. But I think I'm going to have to go get that book and read that, too, because it sounds fascinating. Do you have a salient point you'd like our listeners to carry with them?
Okay.
Yeah, didn't I?
Well, you know what? You can change more than you ever thought was possible. For example, we wrote this book, iYoga, all right? And we started doing these clock circles like you were talking about, where you move your eyes around in a circle. And we started doing the tongue in the opposite direction. So you'd move your eyes to the right and your tongue to the left. Well, lo and behold, it was a key factor in helping people who had had a stroke get better. A friend of mine said, Jane, I can only see half a face. So I had him doing the eyes in one direction and tongue in the opposite. Then it had to be hard. So when that got easy, he was doing his eyes in a sideways figure eight one way and his tongue in the opposite sideways figure eight. Within an hour and 15 minutes, the blind spot had shrunk to like between 9 and 10 o'clock, and he could actually see through it. Wow. And he got his driver's license back. And another guy that I worked with couldn't using a cane and a walker, and at the end of the session he ran. He couldn't run. He was using a cane and a walker. At the end of the session he ran unaided across this long room. Wow. 6 months later, he walked his daughter down the aisle when she got married, just from these eye-tongue exercises, which increases brain neuroplasticity. So anything's possible.
I'm here to tell you that's just absolutely amazing. So everybody, get your eyes and your tongue going there. I was trying it while you were talking. It's not easy, but I can.
Good. It has. It has to be hard.
It affects your brain as you're working that.
That's true.
I can feel
and
it.
If it's easy, you have to up the ante. It can't be easy. Otherwise, you're not making the pathways.
I gotcha. And I thought brushing my teeth with the opposite hand was hard. Jane, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It's been wonderful talking with you. I'm just so tickled to have had you here. And I think you've probably told us a whole lot of stuff that not a lot of us knew about. So thank you very, very much. And maybe we can have you on again sometime.
Thank you, Chessie. It was a real pleasure.
Well, I have to say goodbye. It's about that time, everybody. But I want you to know that I have so enjoyed being with you tonight on the show. And if you want to send in a question or a topic that you'd like covered on the show, and as my longtime listeners know, I'll cover just about anything that's to your highest good and best outcome if I can find the right person to talk about it. So send your question, your suggestion, or your request to me at Chessie@ChessieRoberts.com, and you can find all of my information at ChessieRoberts.com. You can find my music at ArchersMeadow.com. This is all original music that I have written, and that's me singing. My husband's on the drums, and I'm on the guitar. And we're at ArchersMeadow.com. And my book is on Amazon.com. Just Google Chessie once you get on there, and I'll come up. Hopefully I'll have a new book sooner rather than later. I'm working on it. So thank you for listening, and be sure to be with me next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and 2 p.m. Hawaii for Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. Have a great week, bright blessings, and good evening.